APEC leaders end summit without agreeing on a joint statement. Donald Trump takes a first-hand look at the devastation left by California wildfires.
Good evening. More tough talk between the United States and China during the APEC summit. Plus, 21 participating nations failed to agree on a joint statement at the end of their meeting because they too struggled to bridge their differences.
Why differences between China and the United States continue to dominate the Asia-Pacific Economic Cooperation Summit in Papua New Guinea. Rattling off a long list of problems, U.S. Vice President Mike Pence recapped his two frank discussions with China's president before Xi Jinping and President Donald Trump meet at the G20 summit later this month.
But there are differences today. They begin with trade practices, with tariffs and quotas and forced technology transfers, the theft of intellectual property, but it goes beyond that to freedom of navigation in the seas and concerns about human rights. All of those issues I know are going to be topics that the President and President Xi discuss at the G20.
In order for the two most powerful countries to have better relations, Pence made it clear the days of China taking advantage of America are over.
I reiterated to him that the President and the people of the United States of America are interested in a better relationship with China, but there has to be change.
Pence went on to criticize China's Belt and Road Initiative as being a constricting belt and a one-way road. He encouraged countries not to accept debt that compromises their sovereignty. Reacting online to Pence's comments, Chinese Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Hua Chunying hit back. She said no developing country would fall into a debt trap simply because of its cooperation with Beijing. Washington is demanding Beijing improve market access and intellectual property protections for U.S. companies, plus cut industrial subsidies and slash a $375 billion US trade gap. The trend of not agreeing went on to plague other leaders of the Asia-Pacific economies. The group was unable to agree on a joint communique for the first time. Reform of the World Trade Organization was a reason for disagreement. But the United States, Japan, New Zealand, and Australia did agree on one thing. They decided to bring electricity to 70% of Papua New Guinea's people by 2030.
Unlike many of our friends in the APEC community, Papua New Guineans continue to live in the dark. And I believe very strongly that with this partnership, we can be able to connect hundreds and thousands of families right across the country for the first time.
The newly inaugurated president of the Maldives says the Indian Ocean nation's financial situation is precarious. Ibrahim Mohamed Salih's team says it will audit deals sealed by the previous administration, many of them with Chinese state firms. A veteran lawmaker won the election in September as a joint opposition candidate against President Abdullah Yameen. Salih was sworn into office yesterday at a ceremony held in the capital, Malé. Among the foreign dignitaries in attendance was Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Salih warned in his speech that the country is in financial difficulty because of projects conducted only for political reasons by the Yameen administration. Yameen steered the country closer to China and signed a series of infrastructure projects with Beijing as part of its Belt and Road Initiative. Salih's team says it has been told the country of 400,000 people owes $1.5 billion US to Chinese lenders. That is equivalent to more than a quarter of the Maldives' GDP. Overseas again, and the death toll from raging wildfires in California has risen to more than 70, with hundreds more unaccounted for. U.S. President Donald Trump got a first-hand look at the devastation, but not everyone was happy he was there. Peter Koveus explains.
U.S. President Donald Trump walked through affected areas of the California wildfires. Only charred remains of houses are left of what was once the thriving town of Paradise.
To see what's happened here, nobody would have ever thought this could have happened. So the federal government is behind you. We're all behind each other. I think we can truly say, Jared, right?
The president was briefed on the rescue efforts by crews at a wildfire center. The state's governor was among those touring with Trump, and Jerry Brown was appreciative of the president's visit.
Thanks to the federal government. FEMA's been terrific, and I really appreciate the president himself being here and putting the focus and the spotlight on probably the worst tragedy that California's ever faced.
Trump also softened his stance on what caused the fires. Previously, the president tweeted that forest mismanagement was to blame for the blazes.
I think we're all on the same path. We do have to do management, maintenance, and we'll be working also with environmental groups. They've really, I think everybody's seen the light. And I don't think we'll have this again to this extent.
Among the victims of the fires, there was a mixed reaction to Trump's arrival.
Did he say any negative things about all the floodings in Texas, etc.? No, nothing. But here it's because we mismanaged our forest. He's just, I mean, he's nothing but a political huckster.
And I'm very glad he's here. And we're very grateful for anything that can be done. Thank you.
Actions speak louder than words. He says he's going to, but until I see that he does, I'm not going to believe it.
Peter Kovacs, TVB News.
Well, while in California, Trump also commented on a CIA report on the killing of Saudi journalist Jamal Khashoggi. The reporter was killed last month at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul. U.S. intelligence concluded the reporter's death was ordered by Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman.
The killing of a journalist, a very, very bad situation. Khashoggi, and somebody who's respected. It should never have happened. And we'll be having a very full report over the next 2 days, probably Monday or Tuesday.
Did the CIA assess that MBS was behind it?
They haven't assessed anything yet. It's too early. That was a very premature report, but that's possible. We're going to see. But we're going to have a report on Tuesday, and it'll be very complete. In the meantime, we're doing things to some people that we know for a fact were involved, and we're being very tough on a lot of people.
Now to dramatic scenes of migrants crammed into shelters in Tijuana, Mexico. More than 3,000 Central American migrants are camping out at various shelters before continuing their journey to the United States. Some were rushed to hospital after suffering from heat stroke. At the same time, Tijuana residents began protesting against the migrants. They complained they're making the city too crowded. With clearly overcrowded shelters, many chose to rest at this outdoor sports complex. An additional 7,000 migrants are following right behind this group, but their American dream may be short-lived. U.S. President Donald Trump has sent 6,000 troops to keep them from crossing the U.S.-Mexico border. And right after Florida recounted ballots in its race for governor, Republican Ron DeSantis was declared the winner. This led Democrat Andrew Gillum to concede for a second time after he initially agreed the first count was too close to call.
We wanted to make sure that every single vote, including those that were overvotes, undervotes, as long as it was a legally cast vote, we wanted those votes to be counted. And now that we are rounding that process out, RJ and I wanted to take a moment to congratulate Mr. DeSantis on becoming the next governor of the great state of Florida. More than 4 million of you decided that you wanted a different direction for the state of Florida. We want you to know that we see you, that we hear you, and that your voices will continue to power us.
Thai officials have recovered a boat that sank off the island of Phuket, killing 47 Chinese tourists. A double-decker tour boat called the Phoenix was one of 2 boats carrying tourists that sank on July 5th. Everyone on the other boat was rescued. 5 people have been charged so far with negligence causing death. They include the owner and 2 operators. If convicted, the maximum penalty is 10 years in prison.
And still ahead in our newscast, protests around France against fuel tax increases. Police arrest 11 people in connection with an online scam involving close to $4 million. And a world record in the nationalities of participants of Tai Chi class.
人生道上機遇各有不同，要成家立室，想安居樂業，定係投資創業？無論你去到咩階段，佢都可以貼心幫你手。大眾銀行香港嘅儲蓄證券2合1計劃開立高息戶口，儲蓄存款賺高息之餘，仲可以助你把握投資機會。大眾銀行香港配合你嘅不同需要，係你精明嘅選擇。即打81070818，或者親臨我哋32間分行了解多啲。
Welcome back to TVB News. Traffic was disrupted across France as demonstrations were held against rising fuel taxes. Authorities used tear gas to disperse demonstrators in Paris. They were protesting a planned gasoline tax increase of 4 euro cents. The surcharge is part of Emmanuel Macron's strategy to wean France off fossil fuels. French officials believe close to 300,000 protesters were involved in demonstrations throughout the country. More than 100 arrests were made, and more than 200 people were injured nationwide. One person was killed in the southern region of Savoy when a driver panicked as protesters surrounded her vehicle. The driver accidentally stepped on the accelerator and struck and killed a 63-year-old woman.
In Greece, protests to mark the 45th anniversary of a student uprising turned ugly. In the streets of Athens, demonstrators chanted slogans. The group walked arm in arm outside the National Technical University as they commemorated the 1973 uprising that helped topple the country's military junta. Things escalated later in the night as anarchists hurled petrol bombs at police. Authorities used tear gas and stun grenades to disperse the crowd. 2 people were taken into custody.
11 people have been arrested in connection with an online scam involving close to $4 million. Police say such crimes are on the rise. Christy Lung reports.
Prestigious watches, luxury cars, and liquor were among the items seized by the police during an operation on Friday and Saturday. 7 men and 4 women aged between 19 to 56, including the masterminds behind the operation, were arrested on suspicion of conspiracy to defraud. Police believe the syndicate had been operating for more than a year. The investigation showed at least 24 victims aged between 19 to 41 were cheated out of $3.7 million. Acting on a tip-off, an undercover detective penetrated the syndicate last month. Police said the scammers posted sexy girls on investment experts on social media platforms. They usually persuaded victims to put money into fake investment plans, which they claimed were low risk and a high return. Police said they recorded more than 450 online scams in the first 3 quarters of this year, involving some $400 million. The amount is more than double the figure for all of last year. Christy Lung, TVB News.
Crowd control measures were put in place today to prevent visitors arriving via the Hong Kong-Zhuhai-Macau Bridge from packing the Tung Chung Town Center. This morning at the Hong Kong port of the Mega Bridge, many were seen heading to Sunny Bay. Meanwhile, some mainland visitors also arrive via the Lok Ma Chau checkpoint. Haley Zhou reports.
Around 10 o'clock this morning at the Lok Ma Chau control point, some 20,000 travelers entered the city. This after the Hong Kong Tourism Association suggested that mainland travel agencies use other ports to enter the city, given the high volume at the Hong Kong port of the Mega Bridge on weekends. As of 4 p.m. today, about 62,000 passengers had passed through the Hong Kong port checkpoint. Dozens of police officers were deployed to control crowds. For example, coach drivers were allowed to pick up passengers at the pickup point only after registering with the police first. However, it wasn't without complaints. I waited for more than half an hour for my coach, this woman said. Some also complained that the police control measure made the process more complicated and they had to wait longer. In the Hong Kong port area of the Mega Bridge, the passenger flow was quite smooth compared with previous weeks as some visitors shifted to other ports. And more travelers were seen taking the B5 buses to Sunny Bay instead of the B6 buses to Tung Chung. Over in Tung Chung, a local activist group called Tung Chung Future demanded stricter monitoring of illicit mainland tour operators. It also called for restrictions on tourist volume arriving in Hong Kong through the Mega Bridge. Haley Zhou, TVB News.
More than 8 million Hong Kong identity cards will be replaced over the next 4 years, but authorities are warning you to be cautious with your appearance before you take your photo for the new card. Christy Lung explains.
Starting from late next month, Hong Kong residents born in 1985 and 1986 can reserve time slots to have their smart identity cards replaced. Before taking photo for the new card, here are some reminders from the Immigration Department. First, your hairstyle. The fringe shouldn't be too long to cover your eyebrows. For those who would like to put on makeup, light makeup is preferred. Speaking to TVB News, Chan Tin-chi, an assistant director of the Immigration Department, said colored contact lenses or glasses should be avoided, although a black and white image will be featured on the new ID card.
That's one concern is for the facial recognition, because inside the chip there's a color photo, high-resolution color photo for future use. If they wear color contact lens, they can't verify his or her identity in the future.
For the first time, radio frequency identification, or RFID, will be applied to the city's ID cards. The assistant director has confidence in the new ID card's security features.
Even though for a holder they lost his or her card, doesn't mean that the other holders can get access to the chip data, because they must have the back-end system. But that's not very readily available in the public.
For example, 2 different encrypted keys are needed for the card to recognize an authorized reader and access to the data. Christy Lung, TVB News.
Elderly citizens aged 65 or above enjoyed free rides on various forms of public transportation today. This, as the third Sunday of November, has been declared Senior Citizens Day since 1993. Some elderly citizens said they traveled all around the city. They were able to ride the MTR, buses, 4 routes of minibuses, trams, and ferries, mostly for free. This year, the Peak Tram offers the largest discount. A round trip costs senior citizens only $14 instead of the usual $23 fare. And finally, a new world record was set in Wan Chai today with the largest number of nationalities in a Tai Chi class. The event took place at Southern Playground. Around 400 people from 56 different nationalities took part. Also on hand were representatives from different consulates in Hong Kong. The Tai Chi class lasted around 30 minutes. And that's our news.
Bye for now.